The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, back with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
I am good. We are recording this Monday night because there was a Suns game on Sunday night, and there was also a ceremony on Sunday night. I was just talking with you about this before we started recording here, called the Oscars, the Academy Awards, which a lot of people, I know, Americans these days, a lot of people don't give a shit about, but I think partially because both of us like movies and partially because the Suns are where they are, both of us were really tuning out of the Suns game last night and more into the Oscars. And then I know you were kind of watching both at once. I caught up on the Suns game this morning. I'm obviously talking about what became a blowout loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And so I'm fully caught up now. Not exactly excited about the way the team is playing, naturally. But I had to give my guy Conan respect. Last night. I had to start out with him. He deserved my attention.
I'll be honest, and look, I haven't said this on the podcast. I've said it maybe on Discord or something, but the season ended, to me, the season ended when they tried to trade Kevin Durant without telling him. Because they were already not good at that point. And that's why they were looking to potentially trade Kevin Durant to like revive the future of the team and give them something to build towards next year. And if you're already not good and you tried to trade like this legend, this superstar that's been in the NBA for a long time without telling him, the understanding by all the players is going to be, oh, the season's over. And not only do we know that, the front office essentially admitted it by trying to pull this off when it happened. Of course, it didn't go through, which is really when it ended, because if a trade did happen, who knows what it would look like here. Jimmy Butler may be on the team, who knows. But to me, at that point of the season, if you're Mike Budenholzer, if you're a coach, if you're trying to get these guys involved, if you're trying to get them to care, there's a lot that went down that would give them reasons maybe to not care as much. That's not to say that it's excusable that they're not caring, but once that happened, to me, I look at the rest of the season as it's just something that has to happen. They have to play these games. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily something where I'm counting how many games back they are of making the playoffs. I'm trying to figure out how they could make the play-in. I'm checking the standings every day. No, I'm beyond that at this point. I'm going to watch the games. I'm going to watch all of them.
I
was out of town, in fact. I had to catch up on two games. One of them fun, one of them brutal, which were the Pelicans games. But yeah, it feels already over. Like it's already done.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they're 4 games back of just tying Dallas and Sacramento who are tied at 9th and 10th right now. I just realized it's been a really long time since I've clued us into the Basketball Reference playoff probability report. I think I just forgot that it existed at a certain point because I wasn't expecting the Suns to make the playoffs anymore. As of today, Basketball Reference gives us... Remember how they do it. I think it's like either 1,000 or 10,000 simulations. Mm-hmm. 0.3%. 0.3%. Never say never. It is still possible. But yeah, they give us a 1.7% chance of finishing in the 10th seed, a 0.2% chance of finishing in the 9th seed, and then, of course, if either of those things happen, you get into the play-in and you have to win 2 straight games. Right. Who would count on the Suns? I mean, they can't win 2 straight games against the Pelicans right now. So,
and the one they did win was they were missing 4 of their best players.
Yeah, so it would be hard. And just you're completely right with regard to the whole effort thing, right? Because like the effort continues to piss me off about this team. As Gambo put it, the way they just get punched in the face and wilt. Right, for against, like, really it doesn't matter the strength of the opposition. Just like anyone is able to kind of run them out of the gym and beat them with a little bit of concentration and physicality. But at the same time, it's like, what do I expect? What are these guys playing for at this point? I think
if you're at home listening to this podcast and you've watched every game in the last week, which by the way, I'll just say what those games were. They were the brutal overtime loss to the Grizzlies, the Pelicans game where the Suns went down by like 24 and then came back into the game only to collapse at the end of the game. And then, of course, the Pelicans sit multiple players. The Suns finally win one, and then they get absolutely embarrassed by Anthony Edwards, who's just dancing on the Suns' home court while they're demolished. If you're still sitting through all those games and watching all of those games, I hope that you give the same level of grace to people in your life that you're giving the Phoenix Suns, because what you're doing, the level of grace that you're extending to Matt Ishbia, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Royce O'Neal, everyone, the three best Suns players, if you're doing that for the Suns right now, then I think first of all, you don't have to. I mean, if you want to just listen to this podcast, we'll catch you up. And it might be a lot of talk like this for the rest of the season, but we'll give you more. We'll give you more.
We're a forward-thinking podcast here. We are a progressive entity at the Timeline Incorporated. We're doing trades every week. We're bringing you one trade every week. Now, you might have to fast forward 30 minutes into this episode to hear the one this week, but we got you covered.
Devin Booker and Chris Haynes gave us a topic this week, which we're going to get to. But before we talk about that whole Mike Budenholzer, Devin Booker thing that's going on right now, let's just quickly talk about how they played in the last few games. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be honest here. There were a couple of stretches in the last two games, specifically the last Pelicans game and the first half of the Wolves game, where I'm like, hey, they look pretty good right now. And then in the Wolves game, I'll be honest, I was watching with my partner, my girlfriend, and she said something, how's the game going? And I said, the Suns are up. This was halftime, but it's not sustainable. They're going to lose this game. And then, of course, that's what happened. If you're a Suns fan, I'm sure you had that same feeling. But there were stretches in those games, I think, where you're like, okay, this is how it looks when things are going well. And then, 5 turnovers in a row. The other team hits 3 or 4 threes in a row. And like Gambo said, they wilt. There's no coming back for this team once they get punched in the face. The game's over the first punch that they take. Now, there's a stat that was posted online by RB, our friend RB, who we talk about on the pod occasionally, where they have a pretty good defense in the first half of every game this year, and then the worst defense in the NBA in the second half of every game this year.
I actually didn't see that stat. That's a good stat.
Yeah, and that's not surprising if you watched games for the Suns this year, but there were stretches, legitimately, where I thought they looked pretty good. There's Bol playing well in the Pelicans game in particular. I thought Nick Richards had some interesting moments in both the Pelicans games and the Wolves game, where they actually played a lot through Nick Richards in the first half of the Wolves game.
He's hitting jumpers.
He hit 2 jumpers in the Wolves game, I think. Or maybe the Pelicans.
Yeah. No, I think it was in the Pelicans win. Nick Richards made 2 jumpers. That's what we're building our offense around next year.
They played through him in the way that the Wolves were trapping. They were slipping it to him in the short roll, and he was making reads in the short roll.
Yeah, he actually has been better at that than I would have expected. I wouldn't say good,
No. Well, when it worked, yeah.
But
when it didn't, it didn't.
I think I was when the Nick Richards trade went down, I think my baseline expectation was that he was gonna just give you nothing as a playmaker, and so outside of dribble handoffs, and so I have actually been a little bit encouraged by that. You're right.
And Bol is the real story.
He's a real. He's a real.
He's
story
starting every game now, right?
So last 10 games
with Tyus Jones or Bradley Beal.
Bol last 10 games. Some of these starting, some of these off the bench. 14.2 points, 6.2 rebounds, 1.8 blocks per game, 54 from the field, 38 from deep, 83 from the free throw line. Just those are Miles Turner numbers, not with the same level, not exactly with the same level of domineering paint presence. You know what I mean? But those are good numbers. Those are good numbers, Bol. And we talk about who's playing for what at this point in the season. There are a few guys, obviously, on the Suns roster with expiring contracts. What does the future hold for most of them? I have no idea. Tyus Jones, Monte Morris, Mason Plumlee, all the other guys who signed 1-year deals. No idea.
Pretty sure what's going to happen to Mason Plumlee, actually.
What do you think's going to happen to Mason?
He's going to retire.
Oh, you think so? I think he might be able to get a job somewhere.
maybe outside of
I
the
don't know.
United States.
I'm curious. If I'm Monte Morris, I'm just pissed about how the whole year has gone down. I would still maintain that.
You mean Colin Gillespie's getting minutes over him now? Yeah.
Well,
I
actually,
don't know. Is he still hurt? Actually,
he is. I think he is still.
Okay.
Has some soreness, but also Colin Gillespie in that second Pelicans game, he was taking away shots from Bol. Oh, so I'm going around in a circle, and let me stay on track here. Bol. It was the second Pelicans game where he had 25, right? And this was another puzzling decision that Bud pulled him out in the third quarter and did not play him again until there were 3 minutes left, and then it was the Colin Gillespie show. And I actually didn't mind that it was the Colin Gillespie show in the final 3 minutes of that game because Colin Gillespie made every shot he took. I actually think Colin Gillespie is pretty interesting. I don't mind seeing him play minutes. He's definitely
seems
better.
like an NBA player, yeah.
Definitely better than Ty Washington, now that I've seen, some of both of them. But yeah, just unfortunate. Like Bol, with the proper rotations in that game, Bol could have gotten 35. He could have gotten, a 40 piece. Anything was possible. And he is one of the only reasons to watch the Suns for the last 20 games of this season, to be entirely honest. Watching his development and just, hoping that they can bring him back in the summer.
It is one of those. We're at the point of the season where and they sort of hit it last season, although Bol was playing because he was making them better last season. We're at the point of this season where the reason to watch it is to see what these guys could be next year, which for Bol has been pretty exciting. Whether or not he ends up on the Suns remains to be seen, of course. For Ryan Dunn, though, it's been a little less exciting. He hasn't been great lately, been struggling. And also, I think part of that is because he doesn't understand probably fully how many minutes he's going to get and what his role is going to be on a night-to-night basis, because he sometimes plays, he sometimes doesn't. And I do think, for me, at least a little bit, and this is not any fault of his, I don't think the bloom is off the rose a little bit, in that I expect him to come in and play kind of badly now in a way that I didn't really expect before, where he was actually we talked about it for the first 20 or 30 games of the season. Like, his net rating was actually positive every time he stepped in the game. For a rookie, that's pretty hard to do.
Look, I think the most important thing for Ryan's career trajectory that's going to keep him on the floor is hit shots, and we've always known that. But I think the difference is now, he's shooting poorly. I have the stats actually here. I have a couple stats related to Ryan. He's 4 for 17 from the field post All-Star break. That's in 6 games.
Tough.
Less than 10 minutes per game. And so obviously he's missing shots. It's really hard for him to build a rhythm, I would argue, in any game where he's only going to play 6, 7, 8 minutes. But also, to your point, I think there's other stuff that he's not doing as well now either, because he's so charged up and sort of wildly, playing with, maybe a little bit less
trying to earn minutes. Yeah.
Yes. But who can blame him, right? Who can blame him? And here's the stat I have particularly related to Ryan's minutes, right? So we know shooting is going to keep him on the floor. Well, Basketball Reference breaks down in the split stats how you perform based on how many minutes you get. When Ryan Dunn plays less than 10 minutes, he has a 32% true shooting. That's in a sample size of 10 games, by the way. So that's not 0
he's
games.
Getting pulled is what that means, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike Budenholzer is saying no more. Yeah.
That's a total in less than 10 minutes, 5 for 22 from the field. Brutal. 3 for 12 from deep, 32% true shooting. But then even as you go there, 10 to 19 minutes, 50% true shooting. 20 to 29 minutes, 53% true shooting. Now we're getting to the point where, okay, that's respectable. And then when he plays over 30 minutes, 58% true shooting. That's only happened in a handful of games. Now, that stat, there's obviously correlation to that stat if you think about it logically. If you enter a game, you hit your first few shots, coach is more likely to leave you in. We all know that, and so that's part of what's going on there. But I also just think, he needs that trust back. He needs that belief that he's going to play more than 8 minutes, because otherwise you're just not giving him a chance. You're not giving him anything to work with, and it's just impossible for him to build a rhythm.
I'm watching the Wolves game in particular, and they're just blitzing Book, right? At a certain point in the second half, they're playing uber aggressive on Book. A couple of those turnovers, the real run was a combination of Tyus Jones and Devin Booker turnovers, and then capped off by a KD turnover that really kind of ended the game. But I'm I mean, am I dumb that I'm the only person that seems to remember that stretch a few weeks back where Ryan Dunn was the screener when they were trapping,
exactly.
and Ryan Dunn was doing a really good job of catching it in the middle of the floor and finding ways to make plays out of that? Like, is that just something everyone else forgot about that they were working on, and it started to go really well because
if
they
you
didn't
looked
try
at,
it
at,
once?
at a certain point, if you looked at the pick and roll finishing numbers on this team, and I brought it up on the podcast like a month ago, he had better numbers than any of the centers on the team. This was pre-Nick Richards, right? So he was finishing at a higher rate in those pick and roll situations than Plumlee or Oso or any of those guys, or Nurkic, obviously.
And plus, they hide the worst defender on him.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to bring up a player to screen for Devin Booker, for example, you're bringing up likely the worst defender on the other team to be involved in that trap, which makes it less likely for it to end in a turnover. And then, yes, you're putting a lot of trust in Ryan Dunn, but they lost. Like, they got their asses kicked halfway through that game, so who cares? Give something else a try.
It's this sort of stuff. I'm not going to be happy if/when they fire Bud, that we're going through another coach who has won a championship. I think there's plenty of blame to go around with the front office. I want Ishbia at that press conference to not have Bartlestein do the talking for him. I want Ishbia to be there. No, I'm so serious about that.
Yes,
I want Ishbia
absolutely.
there to be taking accountability first and foremost. He's the most important guy to hear from.
He'll make James Jones do it too, yeah.
You don't make James Jones do it either.
I know. Well, if he's there, if he's even involved.
Exactly. And, I have blamed various players on this roster throughout the year too. So I think, if Bud gets fired, I'm going to be, I see him as a sympathetic figure. I really do. I think this was a hard job for him.
Yeah.
For anyone. But it's that Ryan Dunn stuff, what you're just talking about, his the developmental story of the season, the pick and roll finishing thing coming and then it just disappears and he stops playing, or the fact that Bol Bol wasn't tried until the season's already over. It's just stuff like that makes you think, okay, yeah. Nobody's happy that you have to fire your third coach in 3 years, but you can't twist a narrative to say he's doing a good job. You just can't.
Well, you gave me a perfect segue there to talk about the story. I think this is the story of this last part of the season, if I'm being honest. I think this is going to be the type of thing that we talk about for the rest of the season because, honestly, I'll tell you this. At a certain point every week, I'm thinking, what the hell are me and Sam going to talk about on the podcast this weekend or on the Patreon podcast? If we, of course, we can always talk about the games, but at a certain point, they become less and less consequential. So this happened, what I'm going to talk about now, and I thought, okay, this is what the rest of the season is going to look like, isn't it? This is what we're going to be talking about. And what I'm referring to is a series of miniature stories, if you will, that came out over the last few games, particularly starting with the first collapse against the Pelicans, where the Suns honestly didn't play well that whole game, but they had a stretch in the middle where they really pushed back into it. They were down by a lot. They brought it back within a few points, and then they ended up collapsing and losing. Embarrassingly, I would say, if you watch that game. After that game, here's a brief summary of what Devin Booker said. He said, things get tough, and we get quiet as a team. At some point, you got to draw a line. Should have been drawn a long time ago. I always look at myself first, but I also talk a lot. Now, this already, to me, just seeing this quote, now I'm going in the order of which I saw all of this, of course, it already stood out to me as, that's interesting. Devin Booker doesn't often talk like this after games. He's so media savvy and trained, and which we'll get to in some of his other quotes that we're talking about here later, that it's not often that I think you get a glimpse into the frustration that he has. And he talked in this case about communication, talking, being quiet as a team. And first of all, I'll ask you this. What did you think when you saw that quote from Book?
Well, yeah, I had the same reaction as you that, wow, Devin Booker is saying something, right? Yeah. He's speaking frankly in a way that he doesn't usually. My next reaction was probably, I was kind of angry about this, not necessarily at Book, but just I don't need the drama right now. I'm sorry. I know we need things to talk about, but Chris Haynes, you can keep it to yourself. I don't need the leaks.
Let's go there next. Yeah.
Well,
let's add that. It's all together. So
yes, yeah.
The next thing that happened was Chris Haynes. This was the next day, right? So it was just the very next day. And it was a Haynes brief, if you will, a tweet by Chris Haynes along with a video where he doesn't say much other than the tweet. But
wait, real quick. Do you like now whenever we watch the Haynes briefs that he has his own little edited intro of like him standing in various clips next to professional NBA players? Did you
know what
that?
I thought was funny about that is that the content of the video I think was shorter than the rest of the video, which was the production of the video. And like he's just him reading a tweet out loud, but he finds it says at the end, brought to you by Move Insoles. So he finds a way to put a sponsor in there. Shout out to his sponsorship. Good for him. He doesn't have a job right now. Sources weeks ago, Suns coach Mike Budenholzer called a meeting with Devin Booker, imploring he tone it down vocally, leaving the star shocked. Inside that meeting, which provides context to Booker's postgame remarks on communicating, because Booker elaborated on communication being a problem in his initial quote after the Pelicans game. And it is essentially that, right? So Chris Haynes didn't add much more than that, other than he told him to tone it down during the games and during huddles to allow the coaches' voices to be heard. Now, this, I think, is I would describe this as, in my initial reaction, by the way, brought to you by at Move Insoles. I have to add that as part of the tweet. This, to me, was one of those moments where I thought this feels like a little bit of a turning point in Devin Booker's career, because my initial reaction to this was, wow, Devin Booker is leaking a story about a coach to potentially get him fired. Like, if I'm being honest, that's what it felt like. And if you go back in the history of Devin Booker's career, we don't really have any information about how he felt about Monty. We don't have really any information. I'm talking about at the end here, right? We know he liked Monty throughout the run, but like at the end, we don't really have any information, any indication of how he felt about Frank Vogel at the end there. And I think you could go even further back, Igor Kokoshkov or whatever coach that you want to talk about in Devin Booker's past. There's never been this sort of level of reporting on what's happening behind the scenes with the Suns as it pertains to Devin Booker. Now, there was, of course, the Shams Charania hit piece on Frank Vogel that was posted hours after they were eliminated from the playoffs, but like that really talked about Kevin Durant and his role in the offense and a little bit about players laughing at Frank Vogel after he tried yelling at them. Nothing directly, I think, from Devin Booker and from his perspective in that story. So to me, this felt new that we're seeing this. Also, like beyond even just the actual content of it, which we could mention, kind of crazy if he did do that. And I don't know what the context of telling Devin Booker to tone it down vocally even means in this case.
Also,
but like the thing that stood out to me the most was that, this is Booker leaking, which by the way is purely speculative. I have no idea if Devin Booker did leak this or anything, but that was my first reaction.
Well, Book denied it the day
which
after,
we should
right?
get to. Yeah, exactly.
That's the next part of the story, and so that doesn't necessarily mean anything one way or the other either. But the idea that Book is specifically getting Bud fired is yes. It
was hard to not think that, right? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I think everybody kind of thought that when it was initially posted, right?
But also there are other people on the team who could have gotten access to this information, right? Because this is not like maybe it was a one-on-one meeting.
Book would have told his teammates, right? Probably,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's a one-on-one meeting, but the contents of the meeting are not super secret. Book is going to come out of that meeting. He's going to talk to his teammates. One of his teammates could have then gone to Chris Haynes, right? So let's just be very clear that it
was Eric Gordon. Just kidding.
Eric Gordon was who we settled on with the Frank Vogel report, right? Why did we do that?
Because
did we have any evidence, or were we just saying his name?
Because early in the season, Chris Haynes, one of his big breaking was that Eric Gordon was unhappy with his role in the offense.
Yes, great point.
Yeah, and obviously Eric Gordon has been very involved in every offensive play since then, so it was really important that he said that, because his career has been dramatically different since then. But okay, let me just read the next part, what Devin Booker said, and then I want to switch back to just how you feel about the content of the report. So Devin Booker on Chris Haynes' report that Mike Budenholzer told him to tone down his voice. This is a Dwayne tweet, I believe. And Book said that he was shocked by it. He said, "Nah, coach said it too. We've had multiple conversations. I can't seem to find one that sticks out more than the others. It's a player-coach relationship. When things start going bad, teams try," and then he fixed it and said, "Everybody tries to point fingers to find out what's wrong. People are going to come up with stuff. The relationship is great. We're on the same page. We're trying to win, and that's that." And then, there was some reiteration there, and Book would not give them anything, which is what we expect out of Book most of the time, right? Just not give them anything. Now, he clearly was complaining about coaching in the first quotes after the Pelicans game, so it's not like he didn't give us anything this whole week.
Yeah, but he was also
he was
clearly
not feeding
complaining.
into this Haynes thing. Yeah.
He was clearly complaining, and this was one of the first things that struck me at the time when he said that too. When he said, "Oh, it gets hard and we get quiet." That is as much a complaint about his teammates as it is about coaching.
100%.
He did not say
it's more. Yeah,
and I thought it was a little weird. Like I do think there's this anti-Bud bias a little bit where he said that quote and immediately everyone ran with it as, "Oh, he's saying that he hates Bud."
Well, I think there is part of
that
it
that could also
related.
be Nick Richards won't fucking call out anything on defense, and
Yeah,
like it
he's
could
letting
be
me
any
run
number
into
of his
screens,
teammates
yeah.
who he's mad about.
But I also think that there was an element of him saying people don't know where to be or what to do at times.
Yeah. There's a leadership,
and that's coaching, right? That I think
yeah.
is coaching.
Mm-hmm. Yep. There's a void.
And in fact, I'll even add to this because I had another quote I wrote down. This was after the loss against the Timberwolves. Gerald, I believe, asked him what's eating at him about the loss. He said there's a number of things, but ultimately just the physicality of it and not matching it. Gerald clarified what's preventing everyone from being on the same page. And Book said, "I mean, that's the conversation last week." Gerald said, "The communication?" And Devin Booker said, "Mm-hmm." So, to me, we came on this podcast last week, right? I believe it was, I don't remember which episode it was. It may have been a Patreon episode, but both of us had the exact same thought watching the Suns last week, that they look like one of the worst transition defensive teams that we've ever seen. On that podcast, I mentioned
offense
that
too, I think I said.
Yeah.
But especially defense, yeah.
Yeah, especially defense. But yes, you're right. Just transition in general. That's a really good point. But on that podcast, I mentioned something about transition defense in particular. And with transition defense, there are two things that I think matter for transition defense. It's one, knowing what you're supposed to do, and two, effort. Right? You have to have the effort, but you also have to know where to be. Because if everyone's running to the same spot of the floor and you're leaving a wide open corner three open, then it doesn't matter. Or if you're leaving the rim open, it doesn't matter. You have to know where to be. And on that podcast, I said the Suns look like they never know where to be, even when they're trying to play good transition defense. Like there's not any good understanding of cross matches, of who they need to guard in those scenarios, and they just look a mess all the time. And to me, what Booker's talking about here, I think it touches on exactly that. Like they just don't know where to. And if you think back about when the Suns were at their best in the last 6 years or whatever, the thing we talked about the most with Monty Williams and what made him good was that the Suns were always prepared. And maybe this was a Chris Paul thing too, right? Now looking back on it.
I'm telling you right now it was.
It for sure was, yeah. They never went into a game not understanding what the goal was defensively and what the goal was offensively. When you think about how we talked about the Pigeons in the playoffs and how on the same page they were about attacking Michael Porter Jr., for example, and turning him inside out when they went on in that sweep. Like they have not been good at that since then. Now, Frank Vogel, like there is a bit of a Frank Vogel glow up in the last few weeks when we're talking about Mike Budenholzer, but like they do not look prepared. This team does not look prepared on the details on a game-to-game basis, basically ever anymore, especially if you compare it to that era of the Suns, which of course Devin Booker, who played on the team during that era and is the only player that played on the team during that era, of course he's going to compare it to that. So I think it is coaching related too, and I think Mike Budenholzer, truthfully, has not done a good job, and that is not even factoring in the idea that he told the star player to stop talking, which I'm curious how you feel about that, assuming it's true, which honestly, people who are saying that Chris Haynes doesn't know what he's talking about or has fake reports, that's not true. Chris Haynes is basically always on the money. Like this is most likely something that happened based on Chris Haynes' history.
So 5 minutes ago, Chris Haynes is also out of a job and needs stories.
Yeah,
I just think, it's not that it's a complete fraud of a story. It just feels sensationalized to me. Like I just, there's nothing that I can say without knowing more of the contents of that meeting. And I know that's a boring thing to say, but it's really hard for me to imagine Bud calling Book into his office and saying, "Shut up. I don't want you to speak. You know, I don't want you to be vocal." Like, we need the coach's voice to be heard could mean
Right.
so many things. Also, frankly, as someone who's watched every single game of Devin Booker's career, Book tends to get emotional in the heat of the game sometimes. That's fine. He's a competitor. It's normal. Doesn't
Does
always
he talk a lot though?
Does he talk a lot? If it's directed at, you know, the refs didn't call this or they didn't call that,
Yeah,
then
right,
it is.
right,
And a lot
right.
of times it doesn't make his play better, and I can't imagine it making the play of his teammates better.
Yeah, I mean, it
Okay,
doesn't make
so-
that kind of talk doesn't make any player better. I don't think. Maybe
Right,
there
and they
are-
still all do it.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm not saying that Bud would be in the right to say, "Hey, Book, shut up." He
Yeah,
wouldn't.
to the refs. Yeah,
He would not.
absolutely.
He would not. But I just think there's a lot of possibilities of what he might have been saying, and maybe there was a message that he was trying to massage more gracefully. But then, of course, a player leaks it to the press, and now it looks like the worst thing ever. So I'm just
Well, but
trying
I'm
not
wondering-
to make the biggest deal out of it. But
No,
I
you're
also
right.
believe that Book is discontented, and that he probably wants to move on, and
I
that
would want-
whatever you have to do to reassure your star player for the future,
Yeah.
that's what you got to do.
Imagine if he was not discontented right now. Thank God he is, right? You should be uncomfortable with how bad this team is right now. And to be frank, he hasn't played up to his standards.
I mean,
either,
then
so
he would be Bradley Beal, and that's an entirely different issue.
Right, exactly. So, like, I think part of me wonders if it's the problem was that the message that Bud was trying to get out there was not the message that Booker was trying to get out there, right? So they're having two different, distinctive, separate conversations at the same time during a huddle where Bud is trying to say one thing and Book is trying to say another. And to me, that's less of a problem of Devin Booker talk less and more of a how do we, as the two most important people in this organization right now, as far as game-to-game basis, get on the same freaking page
Yeah, well,
to ensure that the message that we're trying to say to these people is exactly the same.
I 100% agree with you that is related to your pre-work, your pre-prep. And I believe that Bud is not doing enough pre-prep. And like, you know, extra meetings with your star players to make sure you're on the same page once you get into the heat of a game where you have less time to change things on the fly absolutely would go a long way towards fixing that. The issue is now we're so deep into the season and it looks like they're not going to make the play in anyway. I just don't know how you get that mojo back. Like how you can, you know, restart on the right habits right now for game number 62.
No,
and bring,
there's no way.
you know,
Yeah.
bring that renewed energy into a locker room where it just feels like guys are going through the motions. I just think, you know, Bud is coaching for his job over the next few weeks. And again, I don't envy him whatsoever.
They're tanking to try to get that Houston pick in a KD trade.
Dude, we haven't we haven't uttered the evil phrase yet on this pod, but if Houston, if they win the lottery and get Cooper Flag,
I know.
I'm gonna have to shut this podcast down. I'm sorry. It's like we had a good run, but at a certain
We'll just
point,
start
we
talking
have to
about
stop.
something else. The podcast will have to be something else other than the Suns because we can't talk about them anymore. But I think let's talk about this then. Is he gonna get fired?
You want me to? Yeah, I think he is.
Me too. Right. I think that's where we're at. I don't know for sure. I have no actual inside information, but I think if you look at the way I think the players have coalesced, and even to some extent the media has coalesced against Bud at this point, there's like no real case for him to stay. Which, by the way, the only case for Bud to stay at this point is that you're going to be paying multiple coaches. If you're Matt Ishbia, it's not a good case.
I actually
to keep a
think
coach.
just to push back on that slightly, I actually think there would be a case for Bud to stay if and only if you're hitting the full nuclear reset button, and you're saying, let's give this guy a chance with a full reset and see what he can do, where we can be more sure of like if his issues were specifically related to him or if they were related to these mean star players who are all coach killers and, you know, don't actually take, which honestly could be the case, these guys. I
I don't
mean,
know.
KD, you've got a bit of a reputation. Book, at this point, a bit of a reputation. But just the thing is,
how many coaches has KD had in the last few?
a lot.
Because he has three coaches in the Nets, right? And
Yes.
then now he will be this is the third coach on the Suns.
Third coach on the Suns. Yes.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah, man. Look, I'm not saying anything. The thing is, though, that they're never gonna.
They're using him wrong, Sam.
Shut up. They're just shut
He's
up.
standing in the corner.
Just shut up. They're never going to choose Bud over Booker if they have the choice. And why would you? That makes no sense. Absolutely no sense.
Right.
So
How about Giannis or Brad Stevens?
Or Jared Dudley. Who said that today? Is Jared Dudley our next coach
I was
now?
just
Did
going back
Gambo
to
say
that classic. Would you rather have Giannis or Brad Stevens tweet?
Okay.
Yeah, no, somebody said Jared Dudley. And to be frank, I was looking at that going, I kind of get it. Like, he might be a good coach at some point, Jared Dudley. I don't know if it would work on the Suns.
I think he would yell at guys. You know, I think
there are times when if you're dealing with a situation where players are not respecting the coach, which I don't know if that's the case here, but it probably is. If I'm being honest, maybe there's some scuttlebutt that's partially the case here. Having a former player is pretty effective.
Yeah, I mean, you would think with like 2 straight championship coaches that winning the trophy would give guys respect. But maybe there's something about just like, they're in practice and it's like, Coach Bud, if you can't hit 6 Jimbos in a row right now, then how can we actually trust in that you have the right mindset for this team, bro?
Yeah. I want a coach who can dunk.
This is going off the rails real fast. You want to talk about trades?
Hold on.
Or do you have anything else
in here? Let me just think if there's anything else that I want to say. I don't really think so. I'm curious. Like, I think that book overall, I guess where I land in all of this, since I was sort of going through it narrative-wise for me, is I'm not convinced that Devin Booker did this more than anything else. Like, I'm not convinced that Devin Booker seeded this story to Chris Haynes in order to have this kind of conversation, which, by the way, already felt out of character for him anyway. So it was already kind of odd. But, like, I think there might be some indications of how people feel over the next 20 or so games as we get towards the end of the season. We're probably going to get more stories like this. By the way, Gambo hasn't stopped tweeting about the Suns lately. Like, there's just a new, and by the way, on top of that, once Chris Haynes posted this, he went to town on Mike Budenholzer. Like, he dropped we could go through all of those tweets or all of the stuff he talked about on the radio.
I'm good.
But like, he did not paint a pretty picture of how people in the organization feel about Mike Budenholzer, not looking them in the eye when he talks to them in meetings and stuff like that, like being really incredibly awkward to deal with.
Social anxiety. No, I just think it's funny because it's like, there's, first of all, if you want to take all of these reports at face value, then there is something ironic about one year the players are rolling their eyes because Frank Vogel is yelling at them. And then they're like, this coach is too awkward. He won't hold me accountable. And it's like, well, what the fuck do you
Goldilocks
guys want?
here. Yeah, we need that Goldilocks coach.
But I will say Gambo is just talking about this because everyone's talking about this, right? The vultures are circling and Gambo wants to stay on top of the reporting.
He's got info.
Because he's got info. Exactly. Yeah. Right. That's where that comes from. So no one cares about how the Phoenix Suns are playing on the 94-foot court right now. No one cares.
Yeah.
They suck. Bol-Bol's good. We talked about it for 10 minutes, but otherwise they suck. The narrative, the storyline with this team is about where they go from here and how much turmoil.
Yeah.
Exactly. How much turmoil there's going to be once the regular season ends and we head into May or June.
Dancing on our grave. Let's talk about trades.
So you want me to intro here?
I'll say it. Like, for those who missed last week's episode, because we are at the point where the important parts of the Suns is what happens in the future and not what happens in the present. We are now every episode going to have a conversation about a fake trade that could happen in the offseason. Not could happen. Just we're pitching fake trades to each other every episode and having extended conversations about them. Basically starting our off-season podcasts early to have the opportunity to really talk through these in good detail. Last week,
12 months of trade miss is
yes,
what
exactly.
I'm going to call it.
Last week, I pitched who did I pitch a trade to? I already forgot.
Last week we talked. I got you. Last week we talked about the San Antonio Spurs
That's
as an
right.
underrated destination for Kevin
Kevin
Durant.
Durant.
Mike
Yeah.
pitched two different packages. One was centered around Devin Vassell. The other was centered around Stephon Castle. Am I remembering that correctly?
Basically, yeah. Essentially, yeah.
And
I
I
didn't
thought we
include
had a
details on picks.
productive
Yeah.
conversation. I thought it was fun to talk about. I think that continues to be one of the most interesting teams. I honestly think you put De'Aaron Fox, you put Wemby, knock on wood, hopefully his health is back in a better place, and you put KD together. I think that's a really fearsome trio
Really
who
good.
complement
Really good.
each other's weaknesses in a lot of interesting ways. So,
Yeah.
I think in a lot of ways that team is more interesting as a trade destination to me for KD than, say, the Houston Rockets. So I'm sure one of these weeks we'll have to talk about the Rockets.
For
I'm
sure.
not talking
And I want to talk about the
Rockets
Wolves. We
today.
just played the Wolves. We're going to talk about the Wolves at some point because they were interested.
And here's the other thing. These trades, we're going to do one trade a week, at least. They don't have to be KD trades.
No.
It just so happens that we're starting with KD because I think we both understand that's gonna net the best return.
Yeah. Well, also, everyone is saying he's going to be traded.
Exactly.
Like,
But
it's just
if one
on
of us-
ESPN every morning. They're talking about KD's going to be traded soon.
If one of us can come up with the ideal Bradley Beal trade, or
Absolutely.
the Grayson Allen trade that returns 4 first-round picks, then we will
and
talk
honestly,
about
we
that
should,
at some point.
We should do a Devin Booker trade or two. Not saying that he should be traded, but like if you're gonna explore all the possibilities with this team, you should explore all the possibilities. And we can talk about whether or not we do trades as we get to them, but that is one that I think is worthy of bringing up.
I'll just say
There
about
are
that.
Suns fans that are open to that. So
I'm willing to talk about it, but my price is going to be like absurdly high. For
Yeah,
Book.
of course,
Whereas
of
you're
course.
about to see, my price is not. I mean, I think my price for KD is better than some like national pundits think the price should be for KD. Right? I'm trying to maximize the return for the Suns, but I don't think my price is that crazy.
Well,
So-
KD has a large enough salary that you're going to get players back no matter what. So, yeah.
Exactly.
And so I did one last week. We're going to trade back and forth, at least right now. We might double up here and there, but I did last week, so you're doing this week. Tell
Yeah.
us what you got.
Let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks this week, okay? So
Perfect.
I don't know where this came from. I'll start there. I should have done more of my research, but a lot of people are talking about Dallas specifically as a KD trade destination. It makes sense. Just, he has a relationship with AD and Kyrie, and it makes sense that Nico Harrison, who, I mean, no one exactly knows what Nico Harrison is thinking at any given time right now,
He's
but
desperate.
it would make sense that he would want to pair those three together in, sort of a desperate attempt to launch that team into another tier and really make them a championship contender. Right? Now, beyond that, like, those are sort of the obvious points, but I don't know, like, who started. I don't know if there was a first person that I should be attributing this to that, like, first came out with the Dallas Mavericks, but I feel like I've been seeing it all over the place this week. Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks, Dallas Mavericks. And here's the thing. When you look at Dallas's cap sheet, because that's the first thing you always have to do, we always have to remember KD's making $54 million next year, right? You got to match. You got to match that. I use the Spotrac trade machine, which is not perfect in all of its details, but I did use it with next year's cap sheets to try and get a package that would be as close as possible. But just by looking at Dallas's cap sheet, I'm going to pull it up right here. You instantly notice you've got Anthony Davis, $54 million next year. You've got Kyrie Irving with a $44 million player option that he is likely to, well, I don't know if I'd say likely, that he maybe 50-50 declines and then tries to...
If he gets an extension, he could decline it, right?
Could
They could extend him, yeah.
He could sign a 5-year extension this summer, which would make him far more than $44 million a year. I think it would be closer to, 55 or 60. And so he could do that. But either way, if they execute a KD trade, they're going to be paying a lot of salary to their top three guys. In order to match salaries, you look at the rest of the cap sheet, and here are the guys you have. You have Klay Thompson.
I will say, at least those three guys can play together.
Yeah, if they can stay.
If they're healthy,
100%.
they'd be really good, man.
So
That's
100%.
a really good group of guys, yeah.
Kyrie, KD, and AD fits better together than Beal, Book, and KD, no
Without
doubt.
a doubt.
They need to stay on the
Yes.
court. They need to stay on the
Yes.
court. And if I'm a Mavs fan, I'm probably dead already. Honestly, I'm probably so tuned out. But if I'm Nico Harrison, like, it's a scary proposition to me. But Okay.
By the way, can I just mention you mentioned that? I think Kyrie just got hurt right now in the game they're playing right now.
Like
Which
seriously?
sucks. Yeah. I just got a DM about it. Yeah, it looks, which nobody knew we were talking about this, so it's just coincidence. But yeah, possible knee injury. I guess we'll find out.
Oh my God. Okay. Well,
Regardless, we're still
going
gonna
to go through.
about this.
I'm going to go through with this, but hopefully that's not serious if it's a knee injury. Maybe
Yeah.
you just tweaked it or hyperextended or something.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. Other salaries on the Mavs cap sheet, right? Klay Thompson, $17 million. These are next year's numbers. Daniel Gafford at $14 million. PJ Washington at $14 million. Caleb Martin and Najee Marshall at about $9 million each. Like, the easiest way to construct a KD trade for a hypothetical team would be, and I think this is what we saw with San Antonio last week, if you have a guy like Devin Vassell making around $25 to $30 million, then it's easy to match salaries. With Dallas, it's not so easy, not because they can just slap those 4 players that I just mentioned together, or 4 of the 5 together, and that gets you to like $50 to $55 million. Boom, you've matched for KD, right? But you're losing a lot of depth. And more importantly, since we're talking about the perspective from a Suns podcast, you are not constructing that interesting of a deal from the Suns' perspective, right? So, like, the Suns could take KD for Klay, Gafford, PJ Washington, and Najee Marshall. How would you feel about that package, Mike?
Not good.
If that's your starting package.
I will say that those would be like 4 of the 6 best players on the Suns this year.
100%. So those are
still not good.
Those are solid role players who
I don't want Klay in any way. So.
Exactly. Those are well,
here's what I'll say.
You'll hear me out. Yeah.
I mean, I know you're gonna get to it, but like, to me, if I were the Suns in any trade with them, Lively is who I'd want. Like, I just have to
that's such a good
Lively.
That's such a good point. I'm glad you mentioned that. So here's the thing. My final trade does not include Derek Lively. I tried for like 40 minutes because I was thinking the same thing you were. If you can get Derek Lively, and okay, here's my original point, right? Klay is 35. Gafford is 26. PJ Washington is 26. Najee Marshall is 27. If you acquire those 4 guys for the Suns next year, you are committing. You can present those players to Book and say, hey, look, we're giving you a roster that can compete. That is true. But you're failing at the second part, the even more critical part, in my opinion, if you want to actually retain the interest of the fans and give them some hope for the future, which is not only are you trying to continue to compete for next year, but you also need guys who you can be reasonably sure they're going to get better.
Room for growth. Yeah.
Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington, and Najee Marshall are good role players. None of those 3 guys are ever going to be any better than they are right now. Right? And so in that package, you're getting 0 of that. And that's why a guy like Derek Lively, who's 21 in his second season and already awesome, I tried to make a package around Derek Lively, and it might still be possible. I'm sure it is.
I'm sure there's a way for like the Mavs to shed salary to another third team or whatever.
Well, the issue that I found is that if you're giving up Derek Lively, they still need to. They're still just going to have to, because of Klay only makes $17 million. Derek Lively only makes $5 million. They still have to give up Gafford somewhere because his $14 million is too much. And now, if you've given up Derek Lively and Gafford, now Dallas wants a center back, right? Like, they need a center somewhere. And so now
good luck, Nick Richards.
Well, but now they're not just acquiring KD's $54 million. Now they have to acquire another center in return, and so it needs to be as cheap of a center as possible in order to make the salaries continue to work. It's just hard. You could try yourself. It's hard.
No, I'm looking at it now. You're right.
I absolutely wanted Lively for that reason, but just because of where Dallas's contracts align, it was not so easy. So here's what I landed on. I landed on a 4-team trade, right? And we're starting with the same general principle that you've got these 4 role players, Najee Marshall, Klay Thompson, Daniel Gafford, PJ Washington. That's your salary, your outgoing salary for Dallas. But then consider them as being rerouted through. A couple of those guys are going to be rerouted through Phoenix to other teams. And we're going to try and bring in a combination package for Phoenix that is young, rookie contracts, and also role players who can compete next year. And of course, picks. We want picks too. Here's what I came up with. 4-team trade. Team number 1, the Orlando Magic receive Klay Thompson.
Interesting.
Team number 2, the Detroit Pistons receive Najee Marshall.
Players that would play on both of those teams, yeah.
Team number 3, the Dallas Mavericks receive Kevin Durant.
Yeah.
Team number 4, the Phoenix Suns receive PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. Those are your backbones from the Dallas.
Right. Starters probably on the Suns.
Ron Holland II.
Interesting.
Cole Anthony. Tristan Da Silva, 2 first-round picks from Dallas. One this year, LA's first-round pick in 2029, maybe Dallas's pick in 2030 or 2031. They kind of have their choice there. The annoying thing about Dallas that I looked into, they already, it looks like I deleted it from my notes somewhere, but they already swapped a few of their first-round picks at the end of the decade, like 2028, 29, 2030. A few of them are already swapped. So you want to get a first-round pick that's not already swapped because you want it to be like have as reasonably good of a chance as possible of being like where you want it to land.
Yeah, because Nico Harrison already said he's not going to be there 5 years from now, so he doesn't care about that season. Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you want to start with this package? I just said the package. I can repeat it again. Which team are we starting with? Phoenix?
Sure. Yeah. So that's PJ Washington, Tristan Da Silva, Daniel Gafford.
You're
Cole
trading KD. You're trading KD for 5 players, 3 of them veterans, 2 on rookie contracts, and 2 first-round picks.
I love it.
You are getting PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford. That's your new starting power forward and center.
I think it's the tough sell for me would be whether Detroit or Orlando would be willing to give up Tristan Da Silva and Ron Holland. Yeah,
I'm going to get there. But I agree with you. PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, new power forward and center. Those are 2 guys you can insert right now. They can play right now. You can flip. I think they're both actually expiring deals next year, so that's something to consider. You know, you're going to have to evaluate them, decide if you want to re-sign them. Maybe if things aren't going your way, you can flip them for more picks at the deadline next year. I would actually almost prefer if those guys were on 2-year deals instead of 1.
Right.
For that
Just
reason.
Get them up to the year that they could have
exactly.
cap space, because the Suns could have cap space if Bradley Beal
But that's unfortunately, that's just something you can't control. So you've got those guys. That's 2 players to plug in your starting lineup. Cole Anthony instantly becomes your new Tyus Jones. He is perfectly capable.
And he's going to rock. Yeah.
Perfectly capable.
He's been pretty good when he plays minutes this year, too.
Yeah, I think he's like Orlando's like 8th or 9th most important player still. So, I don't think they'd be too
when they
sad
were healthy, he didn't play at all, actually.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I get it. But
I think
when they're not healthy, they need his offense.
I think he still has trade value. So, again, I think he's a guy who you can flip. Oh, and also, by the way, Cole Anthony, $13 million expiring contract next year, too.
Yeah,
just so happens.
Yeah,
so, also a guy who you can get off your sheet if it's just really not working out. Tristan Da Silva, 23-year-old rookie this year, very much in the James Jones mold, a guy who is hardly playing in Orlando's rotation. I mean, he is playing, but 10 to 15 minutes per game. But he's a rookie who makes smart decisions with the ball. He could shoot threes in college. I think he's shooting 34% this year. He's a 6'10", tall wing, maybe 6'9", but either way, he is a tall wing who James Jones would like a lot. Definitely on the older side, definitely doesn't have the same ceiling as maybe some other prospects, but he's a young guy who you can look at. Ron Holland II, this is your massive boomer bust project. He is not having a good rookie year. He is only 19 years old, first of all. He's one of those guys who elected to go into the G League Ignite program, which I think was a massive mistake because I think that program mostly failed those prospects. And now he's on Detroit, and he's like the worst player who gets minutes in their rotation. And why I think Detroit might actually consider this, and I think there's totally a chance that they just hang up the phone and say, no, that's a top 10 pick. We don't want to give up on him. But also, Detroit is a top 6 seed in the East right now already. They're the 6th seed in the East. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games. Jaden Ivey has only played half this season.
Yeah. There's a chance that they could be the 4th seed this year. Like, there's a path.
There is a path for them if they use a little bit of cap space and make trades like this one. They're flipping Ron Holland, who is, again, the worst player. He has, legitimately, I think, all-star potential, but is the worst player in their regular rotation. You're flipping him for Najee Marshall, a wing who's going to be awesome.
Yeah, and will fit next to Cade. Yeah.
And it's like the other thing about it for me is it's like you still have Cade, you still have Jaden Ivey, you still have Asar Thompson, who's another wing who's already better than Ron Holland. It's not even like we're asking you for your premier wing prospect.
Yeah,
Asar Thompson is right there. You still have Jalen Duren. I think Detroit, there is a universe in which they are competing for second round or Eastern Conference Finals as early as next season, and they just don't have time to sit back and evaluate all of these guys who they've drafted in the top 10. And that creates opportunity for someone else to swoop in, like the Suns, and say, hey, this was a top 10 pick. He's 20 years old. He's uber athletic. He's a plus defender, can guard
super
multiple
strong
positions.
Yeah.
Let's see what this guy can do.
Kind of a wild card in a fun way. Like, he's already gotten in one fight in the NBA. And yeah.
So that's Detroit. Why does Orlando do this? They're flipping Cole Anthony and Tristan da Silva, their rookie this year.
And they have KCP, important, who's been terrible, by the way, but they have him.
Yeah, but here's the thing. KCP has been terrible. You know who's not terrible? Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Orlando is dead last. This is another team that, like, time's up on Orlando. You guys extended Franz Wagner. You're extending Paolo. You guys need to compete now. You need to try. They are dead last in the NBA in three-point shooting percentage. Not only are they dead last in three-point shooting percentage, they're 3% lower than 29th, the Washington Wizards.
Wow.
You know who could help them with that? Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
Klay Thompson could instantly enter that system. And, you know, Cole Anthony and Tristan da Silva, like the 8th and 10th players in your rotation for Klay Thompson, I think it works for Orlando. That's my logic for Orlando. Dallas, it's obvious. You know, I think you're trying to build around a big three of KD, Kyrie, Anthony Davis. You're losing a lot of depth in the process, but, like, that's going to be the cost of getting KD because you guys, those are the only contracts you have.
Yeah.
You need to give up money to get money. So
and you keep Lively. Like that, so like for them, it's not the worst case in that they still have some high level potential, and also Max Christie, who's been really good for them this year.
He has, yeah. If Max Christie can be your kind of Austin Reeves figure, then maybe you're going to be okay.
To me, if I'm looking at the Mavs roster, I'm like, give me Derek Lively and Max Christie. The problem, of course, is that combined they make like $12 million next year, and it just doesn't really get you very far towards KD unless they find a way to shed some salary and have cap space in order to absorb KD, and the Suns could take back less salary in that case. But that would take a lot of movement by them. But I do think like there are a team that could be willing to do that kind of thing and actually shed some salary in order to make room to take on KD. So that would be really interesting. I think you did a really good job, like Picasso's stuff there, painting a masterpiece of the trade machine, because that involved a lot of stuff, and I could see the logic in all of it. Like I think there's a world where somebody like Orlando's like, okay, but can you at least give us a second round pick or something? And like yeah, I would still do it if you have one to trade. Sure, yeah, why not? Take one. Take a second round pick in that case, and we'll find a way to
I think
figure it out.
Right. The key that I was trying to think of is just like, again, we know that players like Klay Thompson, Najee Marshall are good players, but having 4 contracts like that just makes no sense for the Suns. So then the next move is, okay, who are the like first round playoff teams that are trying to compete that could use a veteran like these guys and might be willing to offload a young piece in the process because they're trying to up their game to the next level.
That's true. Because you look at the East where young teams can actually be in the playoffs, right? Because they don't have that gauntlet.
Yeah, I mean,
that is the West.
Detroit can continue to like develop these guys, and you know, Asar Thompson and Jaden Ivey can continue to play like tons of minutes for the next couple of years, and like they can be the 5th seed because it's the East. There's just less competition, right? And the same goes for Orlando with Franz and Paolo. So yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I was thinking there. Like, I'm thinking, you know, you're trading one guy in KD for 5 players. That's a lot. So, like, you're getting rid of most of your roster spots.
A couple of
right
young
there.
players, yeah, right.
But I think it's mostly playable players. Like, you come out of this trade, even if you don't do anything else at all, you've got a starting 5 of Book. I mean, I would rather not start Beal, but let's just put
they
Beal
probably
in there.
will. Yeah.
So let's say you've got a starting 5 of Book, Beal, Royce, PJ, and Gafford. Your backcourt is going to be Cole Anthony and Grayson. And then you've got this glut of kind of small forward, power forwards of Ryan Dunn, Tristan da Silva, and Ron Holland. This is where like you're going to have to find minutes for everybody. And maybe at a certain point, you're talking about flipping another veteran.
Yeah, but if you're under the
picks.
second apron at that point, you could put a couple of those guys together in a trade as well.
That's true, too. Yeah. So, I mean, I just think it gives you a roster that clearly you're only going to have one star in Booker, but you've got a bunch of flexibility moving forward. It gives you a fighter's chance. And that's all I'm really asking for is give me a couple picks, give me a couple guys who maybe they're going to become something, and then give me a veteran or two who could help me next year.
Excellent work. I think, for Suns fans in general, if you're trying to find something to watch in the playoffs, it's what teams collapse in the first round. Because those teams are often willing to make moves. And the Suns need to be there to take advantage of that.
OKC.
That would be crazy, dude.
A first-round collapse. A first-round collapse.
Against who? Who could possibly take down that team? The Mavs?
The eighth, I would have said the 8th seeded Lakers, but they're the 2nd seed now.
They are
because
they
they
just keep winning, man.
The Warriors,
and their defense is good, which is crazy. Like the first thing I said when that trade went down is their defense is going to be awful, and somehow it's good.
The Jimothy Buckets Warriors taking down OKC in the first round.
Well, they're going to keep rising.
What would the package? We could cover them in a subsequent episode, but also I feel like the package there just has to be Hartenstein and Caruso to match salaries, and then 10 first-round picks. Like, what would it be
for KD? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, sure. What do they have? 23 or something like that. So yeah, they're still going to have enough to be okay after that, and they wouldn't do that. There's no way. Good work. Lastly, what did you think of the Oscars? You happy?
Yeah. How many of the movies did you see?
Very, very little. I'm like most of America in this case, actually.
Yeah,
where
that's fair.
I only saw a few of them.
We watched Conclave together. I remember that when I was
good.
in town, and you liked it.
Yeah, I mean, like it was one of those times where I'm like, if Ralph Fiennes wins, I would be pretty happy with this. He's just really good. I just didn't have any like rooting interest against anyone else.
I like Adrian Brody as an actor a lot, and I liked his movie The Brutalist a lot. Bro was up there yapping. His speech, I don't know if you saw it, but his speech he was absolutely yapping up there.
And he's been there before.
I know. What I will say about Anora, the film that won Best Picture, I think it's a good film. I'd recommend it. Definitely was not my favorite. There were probably like 3 or 4 movies that I liked more that were nominated that I would have, preferred to see win for Best Picture, but I kind of understand. It's all about narratives. It's like basketball. It's like anything else. How do the narratives coalesce? Yeah. Who is campaigning? Right? Those are kind of the things that are important.
There's millions of dollars spent campaigning for
it was
the
a
Oscars,
huge night.
They throw parties. They give people food and drinks.
Yeah.
And they get them to vote.
It was a huge night for Sean Baker, the director of Anora, who got to just go up there and
the director,
like
the
4
editor,
trophies.
the producer. He did it all. Kind of crazy. I think it's cool. They made the movie for $6 million. Like the idea that it's a cheap movie, independent film. They probably spent more on the campaign for the Oscars, to be honest.
So they filmed Anora in what's the neighborhood? Brighton Beach in Brooklyn.
Yeah,
and I saw like a local news segment with the owner of this candy store in Brighton Beach complaining about how it was like, they gave me a little bit of money to rent out the store for the day, but I didn't know it was going to be an Oscar winner,
neither did they. Yeah.
So, thinking that he could have gotten more. So yeah, it's good to see movies like that win.
And the other thing I'll say is like Mikey Madison. I haven't seen Anora, but Mikey Madison winning. There's just something cool about like an independent movie coming through, being this successful, and then like crowning some like future massive superstars. Probably like she's gonna be huge now, and that's kind of fun. That's like a fun thing that movies can do sometimes, and I appreciate that. I'm gonna have to watch that movie and check it out. But I know you look forward to the Oscars every year. I had to give you an opportunity to talk about it. Any win that happened that you disagree with?
Any win that happened that I did? I mean, I hated Emilia Perez, but it only won like music stuff.
And
I was really happy for Flow. This was the $2 million was the budget animated film from a Latvian director made in Blender, which is free open source software. Anyone can use Blender if you haven't heard of Blender. And it beat like The Wild Robot, which was maybe a DreamWorks movie, I can't remember, but also like a good movie that I liked a lot. But it beat Inside Out 2, which made over $1 billion. Like it beat these massive studios for best animated. I just think that's really cool to see. It's a good film. I would recommend people to check it out. Was there anything like I hated? I don't think so. It was a solid night.
Shout out Conan O'Brien.
Oh,
he
love
did a good
that
job.
dude.
He did a good job.
Called out Drake.
So funny, yeah.
Called out. He knows.
I like when they have people that are like entrenched in Hollywood for a long time that are like sort of above any of the drama that they can make jokes and not worry about any consequence because it's like I'm Conan O'Brien. Like what's going to happen to me? I'm just going to continue to be Conan O'Brien after this.
Well, it's also like Conan.
I can make fun of Bezos. I can make fun of Drake.
Right, sure.
I can throw shots at Hulu or Netflix, and like this is all going to be fine afterwards.
And it's like he's like, what are you going to do? Cancel a show? They already did. He doesn't have a show anymore. He's just hanging out on his podcast.
Yeah,
and
which he sold to Sirius Radio for like $160 million or something. By the way,
did he? I did not see that.
He's doing fine. But good stuff. All right, thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back with a Patreon episode midweek. We appreciate you all. Yeah, more trades next week.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.